bit off and boring video, to be honest. Feels like it's an filler and you've ran out of ideas. Could off done and video off you playing jungle and explaining the new jungle mechanics, the plants, all that bullshizzle my nizzle. Well, Mr. Dimorak, I have to begin by saying a few things here. Firstly, you're looking for the word of when you use two F's. That means off, as in turning a light switch on or off. Secondly, you're supposed to use the word and instead of a when the following word begins with a vowel. You use a when there's a consonant that follows, like I ran into a tree. And is supposed to be for vowels. I bit into an apple. You're just using and all the time here and it doesn't make sense. The apostrophe is supposed to indicate possession or the omission of letters, which you use correctly when you use the word you've, but ideas, that is not, you're not supposed to, when you're just saying ideas plural, you don't use an apostrophe there. And also, bullshizzle my nizzle is not a real word. If I was your English teacher, I would have to give you a D- here. But seeing as I just roasted you and your terrible grammar in front of my entire audience, I'll give you a little something. I'll give you that video that you requested, and I guess we'll have to wait for creative videos another day. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name's GBay99. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today, we are back with another League of Legends video where today, as I said in our intro, we are going to be taking a look at the jungle changes, at the plants, at everything now that it's on the live servers, and giving it a more fair assessment than what I've been giving a lot of these changes so far, critiquing plenty of them before anything has actually come out. The plants are now out in League of Legends and in the jungle. This is just a custom game we're in right now to explain some of the mechanics to you guys who don't know how these plants work, and we're just going to talk about the plants, the jungle changes, as the commenter said. And after we explain a lot of these changes, we'll jump into a gameplay and talk about whether or not I think they're ultimately good changes for League of Legends or bad changes. So let's go ahead and start off by talking about the plants, about what the plants are, what they do, and how they work. So these are the three plants. These are two of them right here. These spawn pseudo-randomly in the jungle, and it's kind of interesting how they work. I wasn't entirely sure how they were going to work before, but basically the way that the plants spawn are, I believe these two spawns are a fixed spawn, which means they will always spawn in these places at first, mirrored in the bot lane, somewhere similar, I think. Each quadrant of the jungle has a fixed spawn for these two plants. They certainly aren't as random as a lot of people believe they would be when Riot first announced them. So let's go ahead and talk about them. What do the plants do? Well, this plant knocks you back like a Zig satchel charge. It doesn't actually scale with the range, like if I'm really far away from the plant, then it doesn't knock me further or less far than if I'm a little bit closer. If you are directly on top of it, then you won't actually move at all, but you can jump over walls with it. You can use it to escape or chase after someone over a wall. This is the second plant. This is the vision plant, where this will give vision in a pretty large cone area that it also reveals invisible units, and it will give you quite a bit of vision for, I believe, 12 seconds or so. If it reveals something invisible, you will see that invisible thing or the units. As you can tell, it's showing wolves and showing this plant for the next 12 seconds. The third plant is the honey fruit plant. This is the plant that heals you and gives you a portion of your mana back. You go ahead, you right click it, and you get slowed a little bit when you take each fruit, and I think each fruit gives you like a percentage of your health and mana back, a percentage of your maximum health and mana. Those are the three plants. That's all stuff we already knew. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about stuff that we didn't know. For instance, we didn't know that these plants aren't visible on the map until you get vision. Right here you see, I don't see a plant in the bottom half of the jungle. I don't see a plant anywhere. I don't have vision at the bottom half of the jungle, but as we get vision, we get to see the plants. I assume these are the two spawns for these plants in this quadrant of the jungle, where I didn't see these until I came down here, got vision. The reason I think that's important is because that gives a little bit of an element of skill and a little bit of an element of punishment if you don't ward the jungle, if you don't constantly go around getting vision. It isn't something it's something that you can kind of plan around and that you can get vision of. Again, I see these plants now, I know they're there, and if you're able to ward and get vision of areas of the jungle, then it's probably not as bad as we initially thought. The first reaction I gave to plants, you guys probably remember, was a reaction where I basically said, I think people are overreacting slightly because every instance of the plants when Riot showed them in the little teaser that they did showing each plant in action. Every single instance was someone that was basically getting a free pass by using a plant. Like, someone made a mistake and they were ultimately able to survive that mistake when they arguably shouldn't have. A Gnar that lives through a Karthus ultimate, a Lee Sin that forgot to ward Dragon, etc, etc. I think the fact that it takes a little bit of skill to get vision and know where the plants are, and knowing where they are is how you're going to use them to your advantage. I think that's pretty important. On top of that, there were also some jungle changes that we did not, that we haven't talked about yet. For instance, all the camps except for wolves are changed. The blue buff and the red buff no longer have the little sentinels next to them. Their health and their power is moved into the buff, so the buff is a little harder to kill. The blue buff is easier for people to kill with magic damage, and the red buff is easier for people to kill with physical damage. Gromp also has some changes to him where he has faster auto attack speed, but his auto attack speed slows down the longer and longer you attack him, and the damage that he deals slows down as well. You can see he's hardly dealing any damage to me now. The chickens obviously have a pretty big change where there is 2 more of them now, which I believe that some of these changes, especially this one, are to let jungles that are like AoE junglers jungle faster, slowing down single target junglers, and just adjusting the jungle speed clear times of different champions. And finally, the Krugs have a pretty interesting mechanic where the Krugs now, if I kill one of them, give me a second here. If you kill one of the Krugs, they will give 2 smaller Krugs in their place, which I believe they have like a set amount of health that they will get that's like 88% less of the big Krug's health. Goes into these 2 smaller ones, and this is to give more gold for coming down and killing the Krugs, since Krugs are typically something a lot of people just ignore since they're on the other side of the map. This obviously gives you a whole lot more gold when, again, here we go, 4 more Krugs I have to kill. There's another pretty big change where obviously the smite buffs are removed. That's something we touched on in previous videos. Smite buffs are now no longer in the game, but Riot kind of helped you out there a little bit if you're a jungler who needed sustain that you would get in the extra help in jungling from the Krug or Gromp smite buff, because smite now will restore a small amount of health for you. It's a flat 100 that then scales based off of level, I believe. So there's a lot of changes in the jungle, as there are every single season. Let's go ahead and hop into a gameplay. We can sit here and theorycraft all day. It's all perfectly dandy, but there's no substitute for experience. Alright, so I only ended up playing a single game of Jungle Skarner that I did on purpose. This is just the first game that I played after recording that bit, and I wanted to record this and then upload it to YouTube regardless of how the game went for a couple of reasons. One being I just wanted to give a first impressions now that I have my hands on these jungle changes. I wanted to see how interesting they were at first glance, at first feel, going around and clearing the jungle a couple of times. But more importantly, I wanted to see how intuitive the plants were and how intuitive all the new mechanics were if I could use them effectively my first go around, and I gotta say I was actually very pleasantly surprised. At first the game went by pretty normally. I went around, I cleared my jungle, I didn't really have any problems with my health getting low because the smite heals for quite a lot, and then eventually I would go around trying to gank. I went and eventually ganked mid lane, chased her into her own jungle, got the first blood, but then my mid lane did not collapse on the enemy jungle who was chasing after me, and I ended up dying, which is fine. Following that, I wanted to try and invade as much as possible because I thought that using the blast cone to escape would probably be the best thing. For the most part, these plants seem like very good tools to invade with, using the vision plant to go in, get vision of where the enemy jungle is, and then using the blast cone to escape. As you can see, we stole the red buff, and we ended up killing the Kha'Zix. Our team ended up collapsing on him, so I didn't need to use the blast cone to escape. I'm not too sure how effective it would have been if he ended up collapsing on me, but I feel relatively confident that I would have lived in this situation even if I didn't have flash. It's early enough in the game, and we still ended up winning a team fight anyway, essentially. Following that, though, was the most interesting and exciting bit of gameplay that I have seen with the plants played by anyone, and certainly the most exciting bit of gameplay that I've gone to do myself. I went for an invade on the top side of the enemy jungle using 2 vision plants to get vision, make sure Kha'Zix isn't here, make sure that there are jungle camps for me to steal, and then as Skarner, I walked in and took my tower. Now Kha'Zix comes up and he runs into me as he's coming to clear his wolves, where I go aggressive on him. He starts taking me relatively low as I ult him, so I end up smiting the wolf to get the extra boost in health. He flashes away, I flash forward and kill him off. Then I'm running and trying to get a jump away with the blast cone, but unfortunately I panic hit it where I don't knock myself over the wall to a point where I am inseparable from the LeBlanc and the Maokai, and I also forget that it knocks back everyone, and the Maokai was directly on top of me. So I end up dying, but that was something that I really felt like I was using the knowledge of which plants are where in the jungle, using the knowledge of it all, and almost using it very successfully to get an early kill on the enemy jungle. The rest of this game would go relatively well in the early game for us. I would continue going around ganking what lanes I could, although the enemy team did start warding a lot better. I used the jungle plants every once in a while to make escapes whenever I could, and it does feel kind of fun to use them. But at the end of the day, the enemy Kha'Zix snowballed quite a bit off of our mid laner, and then ended up snowballing a lot off of me. He would catch me out so many times to a point that I got really frustrated, and yeah, we would end up throwing this game. I gotta say, I've actually played a few games on this patch with Aurelia top lane on stream. I think the day that the patch came out, the day or the day after, and I don't really think that I saw any instances where the plants were used effectively at all. They were never really important or any kind of meaningful factor in team fights, and they never had any significant impact on the outcome of the game. They didn't really feel like they were there at all for the most part when I was just playing top lane, although that may be due to me and focusing so much on the laning phase, as I tend to do in League of Legends. But after finally getting around to playing a jungle game myself, I have to say, I think I understand what Riot was going for when they were trying to make this change, and I kind of regret giving them such a harsh time over it. You do get this weird sense of strategy that plants give the game. You can plan invades or plan your movements around the plants, and you can use them pretty effectively in a way that never really feels that cheap. You feel like you're planning around it all ahead of time, and at the end of the day, they also don't end up making that much of an effect on team fights or anything. At least the blast cone doesn't. I've yet to see a Baron get stolen from a vision cone. As frustrating as this game in particular turned out to be, I have to say, although I'm gonna regret saying this in the future, I actually think plants are pretty good. They're pretty good, okay? In retrospect, compared to some of the changes that Riot has made over the years, and compared to some of the balance changes they've made and with new mechanics and everything, these are not all that bad, and I understand where Riot was coming from, although, to be fair, I'm not a jungle main myself. This is just a casual pleb who occasionally jungles and is giving you his first impressions after a single game. Anyway, we got that out of the way, Mr. Commenter. I hope you are very happy with this video. I actually do kind of like making these discussion videos, but we'll be back to creative content tomorrow. I hope you guys all enjoyed watching today's video, but until tomorrow, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.